Find the level. Welcome everyone back to Pommy in Oz. Hope we're all doing really well. Hope everyone's all right. It's a nice fresh morning today. We're recording this later than usual, Wednesday, the 29th. So that's probably the day you watch it. I don't know why I told you that. Weird. It's Freudian slip. But if you're new around here, hit that like button, hit that subscribe. We do quite a lot of Freudian slips around here, but we also have a little bit of fun while we're doing it. Thank you very much for the support. We're absolutely churning out the subscribers. So you guys and girls are the best. And today what we're doing is we're doing the preview. The preview is brought by our good friends at Bagalytics on Twitter. So if you are a stats guy like myself or a stats girl, get down there. And they really do correlate the data pretty well. And it makes it kind of easy for you to follow the game. But we're here to talk about Charlton versus Port Adelaide. And this is a really, really big game for the Blues and for Port. We've got third on the ladder, Port Adelaide. They've gone really about their business quietly as well. 8-3, one more win, one less loss than Charlton, who was 7-4, currently 8th. When we look at the last 5 games, which we really do focus on, it's a really good point when you're looking at form to look at what the recent trends are. And then also, this is a perfect example of how not to get drawn into it too much. But Port Adelaide, no disrespect to them, but they have beaten lesser sides. They have beaten Saints, which at the moment, no disrespect to my wife Saints, anyone could fucking beat them. Adelaide, they lost that game, but they won the last 3. So 4 out of 1 in the last 4. They beat Geelong, who have been a little bit come see, come sa since the Blues lost to them. Hawthorn and North, which everyone should be doing, no disrespect to Hawks. And Hawks ran them incredibly close, it has to be said. And the Blues, very good win versus Gold Coast. Disappointing loss to Sydney, but that's no shame. Big win versus Melbourne. And the Pies and the Cats. I'll be glad when we're after the bye, so we don't have to mention the Pies in that 5. But let's look at recent form. Carwin will be real confident in this because the last 2 times they've actually beaten them, but albeit in their native home of Melbourne. The last time we went to Port, a staggering 95-point loss in 2021, round 22. Who remembers that one? So, yeah, South Australia, not a good place to come. I've got to say this, though. There's a lot about hoodoos and curses. And as a very spiritual man myself, I've had to get this out, right? So the important thing about a hex is it requires a bit of me, hatred of you, and belief. So if you buy into that, you will make it a hoodoo. Look up if you've got time. Sidetracking here as we always do. Egros. Look at them. Egos. Look at them. Spiritually, what they are. They are what you would refer to as poltergeists in the traditional Western culture, but they're not really spirits. They are a thought that has been given life through a collective understanding that it's real. So I'm not a big hoodoo man, not a big guy. Don't like to do it. So this isn't a hoodoo. This is just traditionally a place Carlton have gone to when we're bobbins and Port are good. And we've got to right that wrong. We've got to right that wrong and we start a new narrative. So let's get into how these boys can write new narratives. We like narratives on this show. And let's break these down. These are really the core values of a football club. And you can see here, if you've been following this show over the last 12 weeks, we've really seen an improvement of these. We saw a really good start where they were really healthy. We had a little middle period, and now they're starting to blip back good. And you can see Carlton, the 5th most highest scoring side from stoppage. When you look at the personnel, it should be, to be honest. And you look at, this is what I've been saying. I'd like us to be where North are. I mean, where Port are. In a real happy median. Because this can tell me a lot about your team. And you can see the 9th scoring side. Now, when you look against, Carlton are scored against heavy. Now, they really do a loss between the opening 5 games where they were really counter pressing, looking to overlap run. And then this kind of middle stodgy period where we became a little bit like bread before it goes in the oven. It was just kind of like meh, sticky, and it looked nice, but you wouldn't eat raw bread. Well, some people do, but I mean, that's a time for another show, isn't it? And that creates a differential here of negative 13.8 for the Blues. Now, does that stat worry me? Not really fucking at all. Because when I look at how Carlton transition, particularly off the back of stoppage, it's by allowing a dump kick out there over the last 2 games where we've really tried to focus on turnover and the opening 5. So that doesn't bother me. This is where I would like to see us, where you see Port, they're 13th. Look at the personnel Port put in the stoppage versus us. Very similar makeups of players. They don't let you get a clear scoring opportunity. Carlton here, if you take away Cripps or Hewitt from the contest, you can run it through. Port have done really well, albeit you some players, it has to be said, like the Blues. Ollie Wines doesn't get distracted in that kind of contest and sticks to his guns, and Zach Butters. So that's what the Blues have got to look for there. They did really well last week about not being drawn into the contest. Teams try and draw us into the contest. Cincotta did an incredible job with Tuck Miller, because Tuck Miller does that. He would probably be the hardest midfielder in the league to defend at stoppage, because he actually hangs back and then goes direct, and that could be a trick play. Cincotta read that well. So that's going to be a real key battleground there of what I'd like to see the Blues do is be less ostentatious in the contest. You know, kind of sit back, let people do what they do, and keep your structure. If you keep your structure, you avoid the running through your stoppage, which they did really well last week. The turnover game, Carlton shooting up this one. Number 9 now, 7th against 8th and 10th. And these are happy medians. These are happy mediums because Carlton now have got a 0 differential. They've broken even after, for a while, being like -10, -15. This is really important because they've been playing the harder opposition. So it's got to be noted that 2 of these 5 games we're judging are against bobbing sides. Now, the stats above the stoppage genuinely is a bobbing side stat. Teams focus on that, slow the game down. It allows you to have a little bit of control even without talent. The turnover game, if you're not talented, you're cooked. And you can see here that Carlton not very much different to Port, albeit playing incredibly strong opposition. So this is a real positive for the Blues because we're going to talk about this a lot. Carlton have got to focus their ability to enact pressure because Port and Carlton play a very, very similar game style. Defensive half generation, Carlton shooting up to 5th, albeit because of their high pressure on the forward half in the first couple of games of these 5, they are 5th easiest to score against. But evening out to an 8th differential, where Port 8th, 12th to be 7th, just 0.2. So 2 behinds, basically. Let's say that. Make it easy. Difference between the Blues. And this is going to be really important because Carlton have really put a lot of pressure on the forward half. We've seen the last 2 games, the midfield pressure has been really solid. So this is it where both teams like to focus their application on midfield pressure and the ability to overlap and generate that outside run by fabricating it with ball movement and overlap and outnumber and trying to create the overload. You see Carlton last week really successfully overloading left half forward, right half forward. That's what Carlton need to do. That's Sard, that's Kemp now, we've seen as well doing that. And that's going to be a real important thing. If Carlton can get into that, and they're going to have to because Port are an attacking side, they can stick to their guns there. There is stats here that are saying that Carlton are going to have some real success. Because if you remember when we did this against Gold Coast, they were ranking top 4 for pretty much all of these stats. So this is going to be a really good test for the Blues. The fixture has really helped the Blues out these next 3 games because they're real good tests of core fundamentals of what good football is to beat these sides. The pressure numbers, now these are the very interesting reading. All right? Carlton's pressure numbers have absolutely dramatically shot down. Now, doesn't probably help that they absolutely ran over Gold Coast last week. But you can see here, Port have kept the pressure on these weaker sides. And Carlton, incidentally, are that hardest pressured side. Now, this is slowly going down. This was number 1 last week. And it was number 1 by a long way. So Carlton ranking 17th when you do the pressure differential. This basically indicates your ability, again, to get the ball into space and get your ball into good positions. So being quite high up is genuinely a sign that you're putting it in good spots and you're putting it in high likelihoods of scoring. When you look at Carlton's makeup with the ball over the last couple of games, it's been really good because there's been quite a healthy amount of uncontested. Where you look before, there was quite an unhealthy amount, which means you're getting it in stodgy areas. So this is a real positive thing. Although the stat doesn't look positive today, what it does tell me is it's going to be positive if they maintain this course of action, where you've got the 5th most pressure-based side in Port versus the 6th. So you can see here, it's kind of lopsided. Genuinely, we want to see if you're high-pressured, you're high-pressuring. Now, the tackles here, this is where it comes into it. We talked about Carlton and everyone's saying about the back line and the forward line. It was coming from the midfield. So for there's 3 of these games in the 5 where our midfield just didn't bother, where you're looking at the number 1 tackling side in the league, Carlton are the number 1 tackled side against. Now, this is an area here where how do you negate this? You've got to look for that overlap run. There's got to be runners with the ball carrier at all times. If you're not, you're screwed against Port. And that gives Carlton the 18th worst differential for tackles versus the 4th best. And that's going to be a real key area that. Can Port slow Carlton's ball movement down to the point that they can pinpoint them with their pressure and their tackles? And it's going to be Carlton. Can they be bold? Are they adventurous enough to face the furnace? They did it last week incredibly well. Can they do it again? Now, this is a really interesting stat because I want you to remember these tackle inside 50 stats because we talk about forward pressure. Both sides really focus on trying to hemorrhage you in out the back half of the ground. Carlton, the 9th most tackling side, the 5th most tackled side. That's because there's a lot of messing about with the ball, whereas it's the 1st and 9th, giving the 2nd best differential in the league to Port. This is a really important stat to look at long term because when we look at these stats here, right, you can see how that scores are generated. So Carlton are the 10th best marking side, but this is a real positive. 3rd goals per inside 50. Carlton's ability to hurry up. And we always talk pressure has to lead to tackles, but in the forward half, we're probably more focused on pressure because that genuinely insinuates a quick disposal out of rebound 50, which is where Carlton monopolise their turnover scores. So Carlton have got to look at this stat here really and go, right, it's going to be a furnace in our back half of the ground, right? We've got to look to negate that. So Carlton's tactic last week was really good against a really good pressure-based side in the forward half of spoiling a bit more and playing high up and trying to set the traps and playing Wheater in deep because of his one-on-one ratio. So this is going to be a really key battle here for the Blues of forward pressure, but also being able to hurry the back line up. Because if you look at these numbers here, counting the 3rd goals per inside 50, that's a real positive. 13th, 5th most though. This is that high line that we talked about very mid-season where the Blues weren't enacting the midfield pressure. It creates them one outs. Very good. You saw how Carlton defended that really well this week, just gone, by slowing it down out the back half of the ground, creating the natural one-on-ones, which Carlton succeed at. And we talked about the tackles inside 50, right? This is really important to understand. They struggle to get it out of the rebound 50. So this is where Carlton are kind of breaking even. Their average of getting it out, but below average for them. And also look at the intercept marks for them. They genuinely spoil and look to give and go. Carlton still have that avenue. And Carlton one-on-one, the 6th best loss percentage versus the 14th best or 4th worst, if you want to say. So what this really tells you a picture here of Carlton putting the midfield pressure on. And if you do it with the back half when they're attacking and you get there quick, you're going to get one out, which means Carlton will win that battle. Carlton will be quite comfortable playing a little bit higher up in this game because their one-on-one ratio is so good. And we saw that last week by moving Kemp up to the wing and Blake Acres on the opposite wing. Both can intercept. Both are quite big-bodied. It stagnated the play a little bit, which allowed us to set up down the back with our toes, particularly McGovern and Mr. Wheater in, which allowed that one-on-one. So the Blues will look at this stat here. And although I still think it's kind of worrying at times, there is areas here that we know that the Blues, if they play their game and they stick to their task, and it's all about being bold and aggressive, if you sit back against Port, you're going to lose. What these stats are telling you is you've got to be bold and industrious and really be brave. Should be a great game at Port. I'm looking forward to this one. It's always a wonderful place to go, the Adelaide Oval. It's ferocious atmosphere. These are the games that you're really excited about watching. I am particularly on these games. Best of luck to the Blues. Best of luck to everyone. Enjoy yourselves. Have a great week. Hopefully you'll tune in tonight as we look at the MSD. So that's something for all of you out there. If you've got to the end of this video, love you and I appreciate you. Peace, love and light. Palm out.
I see her rolling up, Uber black Cadillac, high heel boots and a sexy body full of tats. baby's bad, oh